Hi everyone and welcome to KRYPTALK, that Irish guy that talks about Bitcoin. So in this episode we're going to take a look at the US dollar index, what it is, why it's important and what it means for Bitcoin. Let's get started. Now we're going to do things a little differently today. This isn't the Kraken chart that we're used to, but it is the Bitcoin to US dollar chart that we're used to. So at the moment Bitcoin is trading at about $37,500, down from the all-time high of $69,000. And this chart here represents one Bitcoin priced in US dollars as we're used to, and this is 5 years of trading or 5 years of data. Now if we go back to the start of this chart here, which is the 10th of February 2017, so the price of Bitcoin was $1,018.65, whereas today it's worth $37,500. So it's clearly in an uptrend. But if we flip this for one moment, and instead of one Bitcoin price in US dollars, what if we go back and we price $1 in Bitcoin? So just going to take a quick look at that. So it's the same chart, it's still 5 years, the same time span, but we've just flipped it on its head. So instead of looking at one Bitcoin and looking how much dollars it's worth, we've looked at $1 and how much Bitcoin is worth. Now clearly, would you invest in this? Would you want US dollars in your portfolio? Because you put this in your bank, if it's losing value, it's using Satoshi value, you're not getting the same amount of Bitcoin. Now I'm going to come back to that because people might say like, yeah, but that's just Bitcoin. But we're going to look at what US dollars are doing when we're talking about the US dollar index. So this is 5 years worth of data. So if we go back to the start of this, the 4th of February 2017, so it's like a few days after, I think the last one was the 10th, but it's 5 years nonetheless. $1 will get you 0.00097 Bitcoin. So it's not going to get you anywhere near full Bitcoin. And today it's going to get you significantly less. That's 0.00007. So it's 4 zeros and 27. So basically the amount of Bitcoin that you're going to get for $1 is significantly decreasing over time. And that's partly due to the fact that Bitcoin has rallied, there's more adoption, there's more investment, but it's not just that. So we're going to take a look at the US dollar index now. So the US dollar index is used to measure the value of the dollar against a basket of 6 world currencies: the euro, the Swiss franc, the Japanese yen, the Canadian dollar, the British pound, and the Swedish kroner. So we're going to take a look at the direction of that chart. So this chart dates back to 1973 when the Bretton Woods Agreement dissolved, and it started off with a base level of 100. So it's basically, this isn't a percentage or like this isn't measured obviously in US dollars. It's a number that the higher it goes, the more value the US dollars is when compared to these other currencies that I've already mentioned, and the lower vice versa, the opposite then. So if we go back to 1988 here, or even actually go back further to this peak here. So this is 1986. So the index then was 120.8. Now if we skip forward to this peak, you're talking 118. So that's a drop down. And then to where we are now, it's under 100 at around, it's like 97.22. So the value, the USDX, the US dollar index, the value of the US dollar compared to these other currencies that I've mentioned already is decreasing. And finally, just to tie it up, how does this actually affect Bitcoin? What is the effect of it? So I'm going to simplify it here. So if you look at this peak here, this was March 2020. Remember, March 2020, it was the start of the pandemic. Everything crashed. So you had the S&P, the NASDAQ, Bitcoin, crypto, oil, everything took a hit. So if you look at this, this was its last like local peak. So it's at around 103, whereas today it's 97. But if you look what happened all of 2020, this decline. So the US dollar value basically dropped until January 2021. And obviously when this drops, this is good for Bitcoin because it looks like Bitcoin is getting more valuable, which it is. But a lot of that has to do with the fact that the US dollar is decreasing in value. So it takes more US dollars to buy a full Bitcoin. So nonetheless, so eventually it bottomed out here and started to increase again. Now what I want to look at is just to tie things up. So if you look at this, it seems to have a recovery. It definitely had a recovery since January 2021, and it's been climbing. But if you look here from mid-January, this US dollar index has had a nice pump. And what's happened Bitcoin? It's decreased. So in summary, not only is the amount of Bitcoin that $1 US will buy declining, and it has been decreasing ever since Bitcoin's inception over 10 years ago, but the US dollar index itself its value compared to other key currencies has been on a downwards trend and declining ever since 1986. That's why inflation is so high, or part of the reason why the purchasing power of the US dollar is decreasing. So that's why standard everyday items like, a pint of milk, a loaf of bread, a litre of fuel, they're more or less the same units. They remained unchanged. However, the price increases because the dollar and a lot of fiat currencies are basically losing their purchasing power over time. Whereas Bitcoin is a deflationary asset. It has a fixed supply, and every 4 years its supply actually gets cut in half. It's predictable deflation. So that's pretty much it for this episode. If you got any value, go ahead and subscribe. Massive thank you to anyone who subscribed, in general, and especially those new subscribers in the last week. Really is appreciated. It's helped me grow the channel. So as usual, Sláinte. Bye.